The unknown power. The stars had always been a vast mystery, their twinkling lights illuminating the dark void of space. To the Galactic Empire, the stars were just another symbol of their unmatched power. For centuries, they ruled over planets and star systems, their ships striking fear into the hearts of all who opposed them. The Empire believed that their superiority was unquestionable, their strength absolute. But in the far reaches of the galaxy, something was stirring, something they never saw coming. Far from the eyes of the Empire's greatest leaders, in the unexplored regions of space, whispers began to spread. At first, they were just rumors, dismissed by the Empire's generals as nonsense. A new enemy, they laughed. No one can challenge the might of the Galactic Empire. But the whispers didn't stop. They grew louder, their intensity undeniable. There was a new force rising in the galaxy, and it was unlike anything the Empire had ever faced. It began with strange signals. At first, the Empire's advanced communication networks picked up sporadic bursts of energy from a remote sector. The signals didn't belong to any known species, nor did they fit any patterns that the Empire's machines could recognize. They were faint, mysterious, and completely foreign. Curious, but not alarmed, the Empire's scientists decided to investigate. What they discovered, however, sent shockwaves through the highest ranks. The signals weren't random. They were coordinated, and they carried a message, a warning. The Empire's leaders were stunned. Whoever, or whatever, was sending these signals was clearly advanced, far beyond anything the Empire had ever encountered. But still, they couldn't be sure of the true nature of the threat. Was it a new alien race, a powerful weapon, or something far worse? The rumors continued to swirl, and soon, the Empire's spies reported sightings of a strange, massive vessel, unlike any ship known to them. It moved silently through the black expanse of space, its sleek and dark design making it almost impossible to detect by the Empire's sensors. The vessel was like a shadow, appearing in places where it should not have been. It was as if it was everywhere and nowhere all at once. The first real sighting of the ship came from a small fleet stationed in the outer rim of the galaxy. They were conducting routine patrols when the Blackstar appeared out of nowhere, silently emerging from the depths of uncharted space. The fleet commander immediately ordered a full scan of the unknown ship, but his systems failed to provide any useful data. There was no match in their database, no recognition of the vessel's signature. What came next was something no one could have predicted. Without warning, the Blackstar unleashed a shockwave of energy that knocked out the entire fleet's communication systems. The crew was left in stunned silence as their ships floated helplessly in the dark. The Blackstar then did the unthinkable. It spoke. The voice that echoed across the comms was cold and unyielding. "Your reign ends now." That single sentence sent ripples through the entire fleet. The Empire's commanders, who had prided themselves on their technological superiority, were now facing a force they could not comprehend. The Blackstar's power was unlike anything they had ever encountered. No weapons had been fired. No shields had been raised. The ship had simply appeared. And with it, a force far beyond the Empire's ability to control. Back at the Empire's capital, the leaders were in a state of disbelief. The Blackstar was not a ship they had ever seen before. Its energy patterns, its weaponry, its sheer presence, nothing about it was familiar. It was not a weapon of war. It was not an alien race. No, this was something far worse. The Blackstar was a harbinger, a sign that something greater was at play. The Empire's best minds scrambled to analyze every bit of information they could gather on the ship. But every attempt to make sense of it only led to more confusion. Some believed the Blackstar was an advanced ship from a long-lost civilization, while others feared it was a weapon left behind by an ancient enemy. Whatever it was, one thing became clear. It was far more powerful than anything the Empire had ever imagined. As the Empire debated what to do, the Blackstar made its next move. It didn't attack, didn't fire a single shot. Instead, It moved deeper into the galaxy, silently watching, waiting. The Empire's forces were on edge, their eyes scanning the stars, expecting the worst. The Blackstar, however, seemed content to observe, as if it were waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The Galactic Empire, so sure of its power and dominance, was now left uncertain and afraid. No one could explain the Blackstar, and no one could predict what would come next. All they knew was that they had underestimated something far greater than themselves, and they were about to learn the true meaning of their own vulnerability. As the Blackstar continued its quiet journey through the galaxy, the Empire's leaders began to realize something they had never considered. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting, and the first sign of that shift was the arrival of the Blackstar. They had no idea who or what controlled this mysterious ship, but they knew one thing for certain. They were no longer in control. The unknown power had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The first encounter with the Blackstar left the Galactic Empire in chaos. Despite their might, their intelligence, and their vast resources, they were powerless to understand or confront the unknown threat. The high-ranking officials, the very individuals who once commanded fleets with iron fists, now found themselves in a panic. The sheer audacity of the Blackstar's silent intrusion had shattered their pride. Back in the Imperial Council chambers, leaders were locked in heated debates. The room, usually calm and filled with the confidence of Empire's centuries-long dominance, was now tense and filled with uncertainty. Reports flooded in, each more confusing than the last. The Empire's finest warships had encountered nothing like it. Their weapons, their defensive systems, everything had been rendered useless. No one had any answers, and that terrified them more than anything. "What are we dealing with here?" one of the generals demanded, his voice barely controlled. "A new species, a rogue fleet. We've encountered pirates, rebels, and the most sophisticated forces the galaxy has ever known. But this is different." The supreme leader of the Galactic Empire, Emperor Valrus, remained seated at the head of the table. His face was unreadable, but deep within his mind, he felt the cold touch of fear. It was a sensation he had long ago buried beneath layers of arrogance and self-assurance, but now it crept into his thoughts like an unwelcome intruder. "We have no information, no intel, no answers," the Emperor muttered, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "Our best ships are in disarray, our communications are down, and we have no way of tracking this mysterious force. This Blackstar." His voice lowered at the name, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. "Should we retaliate?" another general asked, clearly desperate. "We could send a fleet, crush them before they strike again. We can't allow something like this to go unchecked." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "No, if we launch an attack, we risk everything. We don't know their strength, their numbers, or even their intentions. If we act rashly, we could be sealing our own doom. For now, we wait." As he spoke, the Emperor tried to maintain his usual air of control, but deep down, a gnawing feeling of vulnerability continued to plague him. The Empire, a force so powerful and far-reaching, had never faced something like this. And what was worse, it wasn't just the Blackstar that posed a threat. It was the unknown force behind it. The Empire was up against something far more sophisticated and intelligent than they had ever imagined. Across the galaxy, rumors began to spread. The Blackstar's appearance was not isolated. It had already begun to influence the balance of power in other systems. Rebel factions that had once cowered under the Empire's boot now rallied. The Blackstar had given them hope, a sign that perhaps the tide was turning. It was not just the Empire's military that felt threatened. Its grip on the galaxy's politics and alliances began to weaken. In one of the outer systems, a leader of a long-disbanded rebel group, Kiva Malor, gathered her forces. She had heard whispers of the Blackstar, of its power and its mysterious origins, and she knew that if there was a chance, no matter how slim, it was now. With the Empire in disarray, the rebels saw an opportunity to rise from the ashes of their long defeat. We have to strike now, Kiva urged her followers. We've waited for years, biding our time. The Empire thinks it can control everything, but it has made a fatal mistake. The Blackstar is not their ally. It's our chance. We will not stand idly by while they fall apart. We must act before the Empire has time to regroup. Her words resonated with the rebels. For years, they had fought small skirmishes, hiding in the shadows, waiting for an opening. Now, with the appearance of the Blackstar, they could finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. It wasn't just the promise of victory. It was the promise of revenge. Meanwhile, the Blackstar itself continued its silent journey through the galaxy. It moved with purpose, observing, watching. It didn't attack. It didn't destroy. It simply existed in the shadows, waiting for the right moment. To the Empire, this was an even greater enigma. How could something so powerful, so obviously superior, do nothing? Why wasn't it launching a full-scale attack? The Empire's best strategists worked tirelessly, trying to find any pattern or clue that could explain the Blackstar's behavior. But every effort ended in frustration. The more they tried to understand it, the less they knew. And with each passing day, the Blackstar's power grew in mystery. No longer just a fleeting presence, it had become a symbol of everything the Empire could not control. Back at the capital, the Imperial leaders gathered once more, trying to devise a plan. They had no choice but to act. They couldn't afford to wait much longer. But what could they do? What weapons could they deploy against an enemy that didn't even fight back? "We must focus on our advantage," the Emperor finally said, his voice steady, though his mind raced with possibilities. "The Empire has never been defeated. We have fleets, weapons, and technology far beyond anything they could possess. We will find a way." But deep inside, even the Emperor knew the truth. The Empire was teetering on the edge of something far darker than they could comprehend, and it was only a matter of time before the unknown power of the Blackstar would reveal itself in a way they could no longer ignore. The Imperial fleet had mobilized. At first, the commanders thought it would be a simple exercise. They had faced rebellions, pirates, and rival factions throughout the galaxy. Yet they had always emerged victorious, their might unmatched. But this, the Blackstar and the mysterious force behind it, were unlike anything they had ever encountered. There were no signs of aggression, no attacks, just silence. But in that silence, the Empire's commanders heard something far more chilling than any weapon. Admiral Kalen, a seasoned officer of the Galactic Empire, stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fist. His eyes scanned the view screen, filled with the dark expanse of space. The reports had been coming in for days. Shifts in the galactic balance, ships going missing, strange phenomena occurring in the outer systems. But no one had any solid answers. There were only rumors, whispers of a great force that had emerged from the void. "Admiral," a voice broke his thoughts. It was Lieutenant Vassra, his second in command, holding a datapad. "We've detected the Blackstar again. It's moving closer to the Imperial core." Kalen's face remained stoic, but inside, a sense of unease began to grow. "Prepare the fleet. We're going to meet this threat head-on." But deep down, Kalen knew it wouldn't be that simple. This wasn't like any enemy they had fought before. The Blackstar's very presence seemed to warp the rules of combat. There were no direct attacks, no bombs falling from the sky, no fleets clashing in the vastness of space. Instead, it was the growing pressure of an unstoppable force, and the longer the Empire hesitated, the more vulnerable it became. In the lower levels of the Iron Fist, Kalen met with his senior officers. The tension in the room was palpable, the usual confidence of the Imperial elite now replaced with worry. The reports had come in from all over the galaxy, civilizations going dark, entire star systems vanishing without a trace, and no one knew why. "We can't keep waiting," Kalen said firmly, his voice echoing through the silent room. "We're running out of time. We need to move now before it's too late." One of the senior officers spoke up. "Admiral, what if this is just another test? Another rebellion we can crush with ease. Kalen's eyes hardened. No, this is something different. We've never faced an enemy like this before. We must strike with everything we have. The officers nodded in agreement, but even they couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The Blackstar wasn't following the rules of war. It was as though it was waiting for them to make the first move, waiting for the Empire to underestimate it just as they had underestimated humanity. Meanwhile, in the outer reaches of the galaxy, the humans on the Blackstar were preparing for their next move. The crew, a mix of seasoned veterans and young recruits, were focused but anxious. They had felt the tremors of the Empire's growing power long before the first fleet arrived. They knew the risks they were taking, but they had no choice. The survival of humanity depended on this. Captain Mira Solis, the leader of the Blackstar's crew, paced in front of her officers. Her face was grim, her eyes filled with a determination that even the vastness of space couldn't shake. She knew they were walking into the heart of the Empire's domain, but they had to push forward. There was no turning back now. "We've reached the edge of their territory," Mira said, her voice steady. "They'll be coming for us soon, and when they do, we'll be ready." Her first officer, Ryan Holt, stepped forward. "Captain, we've intercepted a transmission. The Empire is mobilizing its fleet. They're preparing for an all-out attack." Mira's gaze hardened. "Let them come. We're not here to negotiate. We're here to show them that they've underestimated humanity, and that mistake will cost them everything." As the Blackstar's engines roared to life, the ship moved deeper into enemy territory. The vast void of space seemed to stretch on forever, but there was no fear in the crew. Instead, there was a sense of purpose, an unwavering belief that they could overcome whatever the Empire threw at them. Back at the Imperial fleet, Admiral Kalen stood at the helm of the Iron Fist, watching the endless void of space unfold before him. His mind raced, considering every possibility, every move the Blackstar might make. The longer he waited, the more certain he became that the stakes were higher than anyone had realized. "Admiral," Vassar interrupted, her voice sharp. "The Blackstar is directly ahead. It's not trying to hide anymore. It's challenging us." Kalen clenched his fists. "So it begins." He turned to face his officers. "Prepare for battle. We end this now. The Empire will not be humiliated again." The battle between the Galactic Empire and the Blackstar was no longer about defeating an enemy. It was about survival. And for the first time in a long while, the Empire felt vulnerable. An enemy they couldn't predict, an unknown force that had disrupted the balance of power. As the two forces converged in the cold darkness of space, neither side knew that this would not be a battle fought with weapons alone. The true war was just beginning, one that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. And the fate of the Empire would rest in the hands of humanity. The cold, silent space between the Empire's fleet and the Blackstar was charged with tension. It wasn't just the sight of thousands of warships that made the air thick with dread. It was the anticipation of the unknown. The Galactic Empire, accustomed to absolute power and dominance, had never encountered an adversary that did not yield to their might. And now, before them, loomed an enemy who had shattered all expectations. Admiral Kalen stood at the helm of the Iron Fist, his hands clenched on the command console. He had spent decades commanding fleets, fighting rebellions, and putting down uprisings. But this was different. This wasn't some minor insurrection. The Blackstar was a symbol of something greater, something the Empire had never faced. Humanity's unyielding spirit. "Report." Kalen snapped, his voice sharp as a blade. Lieutenant Vassar turned toward him, her face pale with apprehension. "Admiral, a Blackstar is charging toward us. Its engines are powered up. There's no communication, no demands. It's just coming straight for us." Kalen's jaw tightened. "Ready all weapons. Let's show them what happens when they challenge the Empire." But the Empire's preparation would mean little in the face of what was about to come. The Blackstar's crew, calm and collected, prepared for a confrontation of a different kind. Captain Mira Solis stood at the bridge, her hand steady on the controls, her mind clear despite the rising tension in the air. The crew was silent, every individual locked in the moment. They had a plan, and they would follow it to the letter. The Empire might have believed they controlled the galaxy, but humanity had a lesson to teach. "Activate the defensive shields," Mira ordered, her voice unwavering. "We won't start the fight, but we'll finish it." Ryan Holt, her trusted first officer, looked over at her. "Captain, the Empire is massive. They've got the firepower to crush us. Are you sure we're ready for this?" Mira's eyes met his. "We've been ready for this from the moment we set foot on the Blackstar. Remember why we're here. Humanity didn't come to this galaxy to bow to anyone. We came to change the course of history." As the Blackstar closed the distance, Kalen's hand hovered over the fire control. The space around them was quiet, save for the hum of engines and the quiet chatter of officers preparing for the inevitable. "Fire," Kalen ordered. The Empire unleashed everything. Laser cannons, torpedoes, every weapon in their arsenal lit up the void in a cascade of deadly energy, all aimed directly at the Blackstar. The Iron Fist and its fleet released their fury, confident that nothing could stand against their overwhelming firepower. But the Blackstar didn't flinch. Its shields flared brightly, absorbing the full force of the Empire's attack. The ship didn't even slow down. "Impossible," Kalen muttered under his breath. "How are their shields holding up?" The Blackstar's crew didn't respond with weapons. They simply shifted their tactics. Mira's eyes narrowed as the ship performed a sudden, sharp maneuver, dodging the Empire's attack with an agility that seemed impossible for a vessel of its size. It wasn't just the ship's advanced technology. It was human ingenuity at its finest. The Blackstar didn't just rely on firepower. It relied on tactics, on quick thinking, on the unpredictability of human action. The Empire's fleet was in disarray. Their ships, once poised and confident, now struggled to react. The Blackstar darted in and out of their attack range, avoiding their weapons and leaving the Empire's commanders confused and uncertain. "Target them," Kalen barked. "Don't let them escape." But every shot they fired missed. Every attempt at locking onto the Blackstar failed. There was something about the ship's movements, something unpredictable and chaotic, that no Empire sensor could track. The Blackstar's crew, however, were watching carefully, waiting for the right moment to strike. Captain Mira Solis gave the signal, and the Blackstar's cannons fired. Instead of attacking head-on, the Blackstar unleashed a barrage of precision strikes, targeting the weak points of the Empire's ships. The Iron Fist was struck first, directly at its engines, disabling them with a single shot. The crew of the Iron Fist gasped in shock as their ship lurched, its power suddenly cut off. Kalen's face went white as he realized that the Empire, the great force that had crushed countless enemies before, was now at the mercy of a single ship. "Admiral," Vassar's voice quivered, "we've lost power. The fleet, it's falling apart." Kalen looked out at the Blackstar, which now circled the fleet like a predator closing in on its prey. The Empire was no longer in control. The galaxy's balance had shifted, and for the first time, the Empire found itself powerless. Mira stood at the helm of the Blackstar, her heart pounding, but her face remained calm. "We're not here to destroy them. Not yet. Let them see the strength of humanity, and let them understand that the age of the Empire is over." As the Empire's ships struggled to regain control, the Blackstar's crew remained steady. They knew the true battle was not one of firepower, but of will. The Empire could fight as much as it wanted, but the people aboard the Blackstar had something far stronger, an unshakable resolve. The Galactic Empire had underestimated humanity once before. Now they were beginning to realize the cost of that mistake. The tension in space grew thick as the Iron Fist limped through the void, its once proud engines crippled by the Blackstar's calculated strike. The fleet surrounding it seemed disoriented, as if trying to regain their bearings after being shaken to the core. The galaxy's most powerful force, the Galactic Empire, had been reduced to a mere shadow of its former self. Kalen stood at the command center of the Iron Fist, his hands trembling as he gripped the console. His mind raced, calculating his options. The Empire's pride had been wounded, and now it was a matter of survival. "Admiral, we've lost communication with half the fleet," Lieutenant Vassar said, her voice tight with fear. "The Blackstar. It's playing with us." Kalen's jaw tightened. "We are not toys to be played with. Get me the fleet commander." Moments later, a hologram flickered to life on the display. A grim-faced officer appeared before him. "Admiral Kalen," the officer began, his voice low and steady. "We've been given orders to fall back. The Blackstar is too powerful. We cannot win this battle." Kalen stared at the officer, disbelief flashing across his features. "Fall back." He spat the words, his anger boiling over. "We don't retreat. The Empire doesn't retreat." "But, Admiral," the officer pressed, "our forces are failing. We've lost half of our fleet, and the Blackstar is not even slowing down. We are outmatched." Kalen clenched his fists, looking out at the void. The once invincible Empire was on the brink of collapse, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. His pride, his loyalty to the Empire, it was all crumbling before his eyes. But even in this moment of despair, he refused to surrender. "No," he said firmly. "We'll make our stand. We'll show them what the Empire is capable of. Assemble the fleet. All units, prepare for the final assault." But even as Kalen gave the order, he knew deep down that it was a futile effort. The Blackstar had already proven its superiority. The Empire's weapons, once unstoppable, now seemed pitiful in comparison to the Blackstar's sheer resilience and cunning. On the Blackstar, Captain Mira Solis stood with a quiet resolve, watching as the Empire's fleet struggled to regroup. She had expected this. The Empire had underestimated humanity for too long, and now they were paying the price. "Captain," Ryan Holt said, his voice steady but laced with a hint of admiration. "They're desperate. They know they're beaten." Mira's eyes never left the viewport as the Empire's remaining ships began to move into position. "They may think they have a chance, but they're wrong. They've already lost." The Blackstar was more than just a ship. It was a symbol of humanity's strength, determination, and ingenuity. While the Empire's leaders had been content to rule through fear, the crew of the Blackstar was united by something far more powerful, their unbreakable will. "Ready all systems," Mira commanded. "Let's finish this. We'll give them one last chance to see what happens when they underestimate us." The Blackstar surged forward, its engines roaring as it closed the distance between itself and the Empire's remaining fleet. The Empire's ships were regrouping, desperate to put up a final fight, but they were no match for the tactical brilliance of Mira and her crew. "Firing in 3, 2, 1, Ryan called out, his voice calm and controlled. A barrage of energy blasts tore through the emptiness of space, slamming into the Empire's ships with devastating precision. The fleet tried to retaliate, but their attacks were sluggish and disorganized, lacking the focus and power of the Blackstar's assault. In the chaos, Kalen watched in disbelief as his fleet fell apart before his eyes. The Blackstar moved with the grace of a predator, striking with deadly accuracy and precision, its shields holding firm against every counterattack. The Empire's pride, its ultimate weapon, was no match for the ingenuity of humanity. The Iron Fist tried to make one last push, its weapons firing desperately, but it was too late. Mira's tactical genius had already sealed their fate. A final volley of fire from the Blackstar sent the Iron Fist spiraling into the void, its systems crashing, unable to sustain itself any longer. Kalen stared out at the wreckage, his heart heavy with the weight of defeat. The Empire, his empire, was no more. And it was all because of the humans, the very beings they had mocked and underestimated for so long. On board the Blackstar, Mira stood tall as the battle drew to a close. The enemy was scattered, their fleet in ruins, their power shattered. The crew had done it. They had proven that humanity could not be underestimated. "We've won," Ryan said, a sense of awe in his voice. Mira nodded, her gaze never wavering. "This victory is not just ours. It's for every human who has ever fought against impossible odds. We are no longer just a species in the galaxy. We are a force to be reckoned with." As the Blackstar floated amidst the wreckage of the defeated fleet, Mira couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Humanity had faced its darkest hour, and they had emerged victorious. The Empire was no more, and the galaxy would never be the same. The end of the Galactic Empire marked the beginning of a new era, one where humanity would no longer bow to anyone. They would shape their own future, one battle at a time. And the galaxy would soon learn that the true strength of humanity lay not in their weapons, but in their unbreakable will to survive. The aftermath of the battle was like a storm finally passing, leaving nothing but a battlefield scattered with the wreckage of once proud warships. The Blackstar floated in the midst of it all, its engines humming with a quiet but steady power, as though it had come to claim its place at the top of the galaxy's hierarchy. The fight had been brutal, but the Empire had been broken. Admiral Kalen had watched in horror as the heart of the Empire crumbled. His once great fleet lay in ruins, the ships that had once been symbols of unimaginable power reduced to smoldering wrecks. His flagship, the Iron Fist, was now little more than a drifting corpse in space, unable to defend itself against the onslaught of humanity's might. Kalen stood on the bridge of what remained of his command ship. His mind was in turmoil, still unable to comprehend the extent of their defeat. How could this happen? He muttered to himself. We were invincible. But the truth was undeniable. The Empire had been outmatched. Every tactic they had learned, every weapon they had mastered, had failed against the ingenuity and determination of humanity. He had thought that the Blackstar was just another ship, a ship built by a species that had no place in the galaxy. How foolish he had been. "What now, Admiral?" Lieutenant Vassar's voice broke through his thoughts. Kalen turned to her, his eyes hard with the weight of the decision he had to make. "We surrender. There's nothing left for us. The Empire is finished." Vassar's eyes widened, but she nodded slowly. She, too, had seen the devastation. The fleet was lost, and there was no hope of turning the tide. The war was over, and the Galactic Empire was no more. Across the battlefield, the Blackstar's crew was silent, each of them processing the victory in their own way. Captain Mira Solis stood at the command center, staring out at the remnants of the Empire's fleet. It was a surreal sight. A force that had once been untouchable, now nothing more than debris floating in space. "They've surrendered," Ryan Holt said, his voice quiet. "We've broken them." Mira didn't reply at first. Her gaze remained fixed on the view ahead, the wreckage of the Iron Fist still burning brightly against the dark void. The battle had been intense, but the victory felt almost anticlimactic. There was no celebration. There was no time for that. The Empire had been a ruthless force, but now they were nothing. "They'll never forget this," Mira finally said, her voice low but firm. "Humanity has shown the galaxy what we're capable of. We've proved ourselves. But we'll have to watch carefully. Other empires will rise, and they will remember what happened here. They'll know that underestimating humanity means their own end." Ryan nodded. "We've set a new precedent. The galaxy won't be the same." Back on the Iron Fist, Kalen had made his decision. The Empire had fallen, and now the galaxy would know the truth. Humans were not the insignificant species they had once thought them to be. They were survivors, they were fighters, and they would no longer be subjugated. "Prepare to send our surrender message," Kalen ordered. Vassara nodded and moved to send the communication. As she typed the words, Kalen's mind wandered back to the battle. The moment when the Blackstar had fired its devastating volley and shattered their fleet seemed to be burned into his memory. the fear in his heart as he realized they were outmatched. The humbling defeat of watching the empire he had dedicated his life to crumble. "We've lost everything," Kalen said softly, a hollow feeling settling in his chest. But even as he said those words, he knew one thing. The end of the empire wasn't the end of humanity's story. It was just the beginning. On board the Blackstar, Mira Solis and her crew watched the empire's surrender message come through, the words flashing on the screen before them. "The empire surrenders," Mira said, her voice filled with a quiet satisfaction. "But this doesn't change anything. We've won this battle. But the war for the galaxy is far from over." Ryan's voice was steady as he replied. "But the galaxy knows now. They know humanity will fight, and they'll never be underestimated again." As Mira looked out at the vast expanse of space, she felt a sense of finality. The empire had fallen. Their reign of terror had come to an end, and humanity had shown the galaxy the true cost of underestimating them. But even in victory, there was no time for rest. The galaxy was vast, and there would always be those who sought power. Humanity had proven its worth, but now it would need to stay vigilant. The galaxy would remember this day, but it would also remember the lesson. Humanity would never again be an easy target. And with that knowledge, Mira Solis stood tall. The Blackstar, humanity's shining beacon, had begun the journey toward a future where they would shape their destiny. The galaxy would never be the same. The void of space stretched out before the Blackstar, a silent testament to the chaos that had once ruled the galaxy. But now, there was peace, at least for a time. The Galactic Empire, shattered beyond repair, had left a vacuum. For the first time in generations, the galaxy was faced with the prospect of a new order. One that did not involve oppression, domination, or endless conquest. Mira Solis stood on the observation deck of the Blackstar, her gaze focused on the stars ahead. It had been a long journey. The crew of the Blackstar had endured much, battles, loss, and the weight of responsibility that came with being the force that had brought down an empire. But now, the war was over, and the galaxy was theirs to shape. "We've done it," Lieutenant Ryan Holt said, his voice filled with awe. He stood next to her, his eyes scanning the vast reaches of space. "We've changed everything." Mira didn't respond immediately. Instead, she turned to face him. "Yes, but it's not over," she said, her voice steady. "The empire may be gone, but there are still forces out there that would seek to fill the void. We've proven humanity's strength, but we must remain vigilant. This galaxy is still full of dangers." Ryan nodded. He understood. The battle against the empire had been won, but there was no guarantee that the galaxy's future would be as easy. There would be others who would rise to power, others who would challenge humanity's place in the galaxy. But that didn't matter to Mira. She knew that humanity was different now. They had proven they were capable of facing the worst the universe could throw at them. Back on Earth, news of the victory was spreading like wildfire. The leaders of the world, united in a way that had never been seen before, celebrated the triumph of the Blackstar and its crew. The victory was not just military, it was symbolic. Humanity had gone from being a species underestimated by the galaxy to one that had reshaped the future of the entire cosmos. In the halls of the United Nations, the atmosphere was charged with excitement. World leaders gathered, their faces alight with pride as they watched the footage of the Blackstar's victory. The news broadcasts were filled with praise for the crew, especially Mira Solis, who had become a global hero. Her name was synonymous with hope, determination, and strength. "We did it," the President of the United States said, standing before a group of international leaders. "Humanity has taken its place in the galaxy. We've shown the universe that we are not to be underestimated." But even as he spoke, he knew that the journey was far from over. The galaxy was a vast and uncertain place, and now that humanity had gained a foothold, it would have to protect that position. But one thing was clear: humanity was no longer a quiet, insignificant species. They had earned their place in the stars. As the days passed, the Blackstar and its crew continued to patrol the galaxy, ensuring that the remnants of the Empire's forces were dismantled and that no other threats emerged. The crew had become a symbol of hope across the stars. The reputation of the Blackstar had spread far beyond the battlefields. It was now a symbol of humanity's strength, resilience, and unyielding spirit. Mira Solis sat in her quarters reviewing the latest reports. The Empire was crumbling, but there were still pockets of resistance. Small groups of rogue warlords and remnants of Imperial fleets scattered across the galaxy. They were nothing compared to the might of the Blackstar, but they were still a threat to the fragile peace that had been established. "Captain," a voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Lieutenant Ryan Holt, standing in the doorway with a serious expression. "There's something you need to see." Mira followed him to the command deck, where the rest of the crew was already gathered. A holographic map of the galaxy was displayed before them, showing various regions where Imperial forces were rumored to be hiding. "They're regrouping," Ryan said, pointing to a cluster of systems on the edge of the galaxy. "They're not gone yet. We have to be ready." Mira nodded. The victory had been significant, but the fight was not over. Humanity had proven its strength, but now it was time to protect the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. In the end, the story of the Blackstar was one of resilience, of a species that had been underestimated, laughed at, and ignored, only to rise up and change the course of history. The Galactic Empire had fallen, but the galaxy was still full of dangers. The Blackstar and its crew would continue to protect humanity's future, for they knew that true peace was not a gift. It was something you had to fight for every single day. Humanity had earned its place in the stars, and with that, they would never again be overlooked. The Blackstar had shown them all that humans were a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy would remember that lesson for generations to come. The future was uncertain, but one thing was certain: humanity's legacy would never fade.